The harsh truth of professional sports economics has just slammed directly into the competitive fire of a breakthrough rookie. At this very moment, the Indiana Fever's leadership is confronting a massive, publicly visible organizational crisis. Executives lounging in their premium boxes genuinely thought they had pulled off the perfect discrete salary cap maneuver. Their calculation was simple: exploit a particular provision in the updated WNBA collective bargaining agreement, place a 6'4" elite shooter on a limited developmental deal, and face zero pushback from fans. They fully anticipated Justine Pissott would simply pose for cameras, show humble appreciation for the minimal chance to wear the team's practice uniform, and patiently accept her spot at the roster's bottom while established players dominated rotation minutes. Instead, Justine Pissott stepped straight to the media platform at the Indiana Fever's training complex, looked past the carefully crafted corporate messaging, and spoke the blunt truth. Her response was not scripted. No media relations advisor filtered it. This was the direct communication of an elite athlete who understands precisely what she brings to a championship-caliber basketball organization. Welcome back to WNBA Pro, the direct, bold, and intensely analytical destination for the most intelligent basketball discussions available online. If you're seeking superficial stats, regurgitation, surface-level emotional reactions, and polished corporate media content carefully constructed to shield sensitive executive pride, exit this video immediately. Today, we're dissecting the mental battle currently ripping through Indiana Fever training camp, the calculated salary cap tactics employed by General Manager Lynn Dunn, the looming collective bargaining agreement deadlines about to trigger a roster decision, the compelling game footage from the Barclays Center, and precisely why Justine Pissott is poised to demolish the Indiana Fever's budget projections. We'll begin by examining the strategic financial approach the front office tried to implement and how Justine Pissott revealed it on national television. At the required press session following the 109-91 demolition of the defending Eastern Conference champion New York Liberty, a local journalist lobbed Pissott a typical, predictable, organization-friendly question. The reporter inquired whether having that developmental contract in place helps reduce some of the pressure on you as you attempt to discover your rhythm and style of play. This came directly from the Indiana Fever's official YouTube channel. Does it help having that developmental contract in place to somewhat reduce the pressure on you so you can figure out how to integrate your game?
Honestly, not as much as you probably think. My goal is still to make a 12-player roster. But again, I'm super thankful that I'm even considered to be on that contract. But again, the main goal is to be able to come to the 12 spot.
What I noticed right there.
However, study the actual game footage that validates Pissott's expectations closely. The Indiana Fever coaching staff inserted her into the rotation against the New York Liberty, and she immediately transformed the defensive geometry of the floor. She establishes a flawless ready stance, she receives the ball, instantly squares her shoulders toward the rim, and releases the deep three-pointer without a single moment of hesitation. The release point sits so elevated that the elite Liberty defenders cannot physically challenge the attempt.
Versatility to the game.
16 points on the night, and book it. Before the Fever knocks it down.
There was no hesitation on that shot.
And she demonstrates the unmistakable capacity to shoot flawlessly under severe physical pressure. She elevates above the defensive pressure, depends entirely on her collegiate shooting fundamentals, and effortlessly converts the contested attempt. That particular level of composed elite shot creation is precisely why opposing general managers are currently tracking her waiver situation.
And here, once again, you see she's ready for the pass. Catches it, look at hand up. Pretty close, look at that. Defense has the foot right on the line here. So pretty close, not a problem.
And she's actively refusing to be outworked by anyone throughout the entire organization. Examine the undeniable practice recordings. She's completely isolated on the court, launching hundreds of repetitive, game-speed attempts. She's compelling the coaching staff to visually acknowledge her elite value every single day. Here's precisely what WNBA Pro projects will transpire next. Justine Pissott will demonstrate such undeniable excellence in practice that the Indiana Fever coaching staff will have zero choice but to demand the front office discover a mathematical solution to place her onto the primary roster before the All-Star break. She'll convert contested threes and scrimmages every single day. She'll prove to Stephanie White that she represents a significant, unguardable offensive weapon that cannot remain locked in a logistical restriction for 32 games. The optimal scenario for the Indiana Fever franchise involves Pissott utilizing her 12 restricted activations to demonstrate she's a legitimate rotation contributor. She converts her perimeter attempts, she executes highly disciplined positional defense, she demonstrates she can contribute during high-stakes minutes. And then the front office officially converts her to a standard agreement at the mid-season mark when the roster composition is clearer and they understand precisely what veteran depth they can afford to release for the playoff drive. However, the worst-case scenario, the catastrophic scenario currently disturbing Fever fans' sleep, involves Justine Pissott becoming understandably frustrated by the disrespectful absence of playing time. She observes from the bench in street clothes for weeks continuously, while rival teams actively pursue her agent with attractive standard contract proposals. Her professional patience expires, and the Indiana Fever sacrifice a 6'4" unicorn entirely because they were excessively financially conservative with their initial cap administration to provide her a legitimate roster position from the absolute beginning. Justine Pissott was refreshingly direct about her internal perspective. She's not satisfied. She wants to compete in professional basketball. She knows she belongs on the hardwood, and WNBA Pro unequivocally supports her. The Indiana Fever possess a 6'4" elite sharpshooter who appeared effortlessly comfortable in her professional debut against the strongest defense in the Eastern Conference. That's not a developmental practice squad contributor. That's a highly valuable championship rotation asset currently being stored in the completely incorrect administrative category. A massive acknowledgement to our dedicated channel members like Sarah, Mark, and David for consistently supporting the vision, backing the channel, and demanding elite, uncompromising tactical analysis. We're constructing the smartest, most fearless basketball community on the internet, and your dedication makes this deep dive documentary content achievable. Hit that subscribe button immediately if you want the deepest, most analytical roster breakdown on the internet that mainstream media is terrified to publish. Share your unfiltered prediction in the comments section below. Should the Indiana Fever immediately convert Justine Pissott to a fully guaranteed standard contract before a rival team acquires her? Is Lynn Dunn mismanaging the salary cap? And will Stephanie White exhaust the 12 activations before the playoffs even commence? I want to review every single prediction in that comment section. Activate the notification bell immediately, because the highly anticipated Dallas Wings preseason matchup arrives in precisely 2 days. Justine Pissott is about to receive another significant national audition, and the rival Predators are officially circling the Indiana practice facility.
Back at it in practice after that game. Here she is 1 day ago, putting up shots.
Watch the raw, uncut recording of her precise answer closely, because it represents a clinic in professional resistance. 99% of rookies in professional sports, when presented that particular psychological setup, would instantly retreat to the conventional corporate playbook. They would display that deeply unfortunate, just grateful for the opportunity attitude that plagues the bottom rungs of professional athletics. Justine Pissott aggressively refused that performance. She locked eyes directly with the reporter, held unwavering eye contact, and declared, "Honestly, not nearly as much as you probably assume. My objective remains making the 12-player roster, but obviously, I'm extremely grateful that I'm even eligible for that contract. However, the primary goal is absolutely securing a spot on the 12-person roster. Allow that uncompromising competitive mentality to fully register in your basketball consciousness for a second." She skillfully walked the delicate psychological balance of professional media engagement. She conveyed fundamental appreciation for the initial chance, preventing her from appearing entitled. Yet she refused to end there. She boldly placed the entire Indiana Fever coaching operation and front office on public record. She informed the complete WNBA landscape that she's not content. She demands a standard 12-woman active roster position. She believes she's earned more. And considering the evidence from her professional debut against the Liberty, where she finished 2 for 4 from the floor with 6 points in merely 10 minutes and recorded an impressive +16 rating, she's correct. However, we need to advance this discussion beyond feelings and explore the ruthless, unforgiving salary cap calculations that generated this predicament. Nobody in mainstream sports journalism is properly explaining the harsh financial circumstances that forced Justine Pissott into this contractual arrangement. Allow me to break down the mathematics, because the actual figures reveal the complete narrative of front office dysfunction. The existing WNBA salary hard cap sits at $7 million. The Indiana Fever allocated enormous, franchise-defining resources to their veteran foundation during the offseason. Kelsey Mitchell operates on a $1.4 million Supermax deal. Aaliyah Boston recently signed a fully guaranteed 4-year $6.3 million extension. Caitlin Clark holds her mandated rookie-scale contract. Sophie Cunningham was locked in on a $665,000 agreement. Lexi Hull received an extension. Monique Billings sits on a guaranteed 2-year arrangement. Maisha Hines-Allen, Temi Fagbenle, and first-round selection Raven Johnson all possess contracts counting against the hard cap. Once the Indiana Fever completed signing their primary rotational contributors and overpaying for unnecessary veteran depth, absolutely zero salary cap room remained to present Justine Pissott a standard fully guaranteed 12-woman roster agreement. The front office literally exhausted available funds. This leads us to the intricate mechanics of the WNBA developmental contract. Most general fans don't completely grasp the precise CBA regulations that establish this limited roster classification. According to the updated collective bargaining agreement, WNBA organizations can currently maintain 2 supplementary players beyond the standard 12-person active roster. These developmental athletes participate completely in every single professional practice. They accompany the team on charter flights, they attend film sessions, they train in the weight room, they join every strategic discussion, they perform everything a standard roster member does, except compete in actual basketball. The devastating restriction of the developmental contract mandates these players can only be activated for a maximum of 12 games per regular season, 12 total games across a demanding 44-game WNBA schedule. That reality indicates that for precisely 32 professional basketball contests, Justine Pissott is legally required to remain on the bench in civilian clothing and observe her teammates compete while she's completely healthy and prepared to actively support a championship pursuit. For an athlete who just shot 42% from three-point range at Vanderbilt University, for an athlete standing exactly 6'4" with a smooth, uncontestable release and elite spacing capability, for that highly desirable perimeter prototype to be explicitly informed by her own front office that she's limited to participating in only 12 games isn't professional development. It's a systematic and financial prison, and Pissott recognizes it. That's why she was so direct during the press conference. She didn't maliciously criticize the organization publicly. She didn't immaturely request a public trade, yet she made it unmistakably evident that the developmental contract represents merely an initial step for her, not the final career objective. And this generates a tactical crisis for head coach Stephanie White. Remain with me here because the strategic calculation regarding how the Indiana Fever utilized these limited activations will become one of the most compelling storylines throughout the entire WNBA season. Stephanie White must now determine precisely which 12 games to activate Justine Pissott for. That's a challenging logistical calculation that will unfold across the entire season. Does White activate Pissott for the highest pressure matchups against the strongest defensive opponents in the league, where her elite perimeter shooting could represent the difference between victory and defeat? Does she conservatively reserve the activations for the exhausting second half of the season when veteran exhaustion emerges? Does she deploy them strategically against particular teams running small ball lineups where Pissott's towering 6'4" physique provides the Fever an unguardable mismatch advantage on the perimeter? And what occurs to the organizational budget if there's a sudden soft tissue injury to Lexi Hull or Sophie Cunningham early in the season? Does Stephanie White desperately consume Pissott's limited activations in April and May simply to temporarily address the rotational shortage? And if she does, what happens in September and October when the intensely physical playoff race arrives and Pissott has 0 legal activations left? These aren't abstract hypothetical scenarios. These represent the brutal mathematical choices that will determine how the Indiana Fever manage their championship ambitions this season. However, the most frightening threat to the Indiana Fever doesn't originate from inside the building. It originates from the rest of the league. Here's the dangerous legal dimension of the CBA that nobody in mainstream media is currently addressing. Justine Pissott's strict 14-day exclusive negotiating window with the Indiana Fever has officially concluded. That particular legal threshold indicates that every single competing franchise throughout the entire WNBA can now legally present her a standard, fully guaranteed 12-woman roster contract. If the Chicago Sky desperately requires floor spacing, or the Los Angeles Sparks navigating a significant youth reconstruction, or the Dallas Wings needing perimeter gravity to support Paige Bucher's determine they want a 6'4" elite shooter who just went 2 for 4 in her professional debut against the Liberty, they can submit an immediate binding contract proposal today. Now, the Indiana Fever technically hold the right of first refusal. That CBA provision grants the Fever the capability to match any external contract proposal. But here's the franchise-altering complication. Matching the external proposal legally requires converting Justine Pissott from her unprotected developmental contract to a standard fully guaranteed active roster contract, which indicates her new salary suddenly counts against the $7 million hard cap, which indicates the Indiana Fever must magically locate salary cap room they don't currently possess, which indicates someone else on the current roster must be publicly released to make the mathematics function. If a competing team forces the Indiana Fever's hand by presenting Pissott a standard contract, Lynn Dunn and Kelly Krauskopf will be compelled to make an excruciating financial determination. They'll either need to release an established veteran who currently possesses a guaranteed contract, meaning they still absorb the dead cap expense, or they'll simply need to surrender and permit an elite 6'4" floor spacer to exit their practice facility and join a rival championship contender for absolutely nothing. This represents the precise kind of high-stakes roster puzzle that distinguishes truly exceptional front offices from inadequately managed ones. And currently, the Indiana Fever executives must navigate this frightening legal obstacle course in real time while simultaneously attempting to handle the tremendous pressure of pursuing a WNBA championship. We're investing the effort. Let's examine the effort she's investing.